The Just Cause series was not one that immediately drew me in, not because of the franchise being terrible, because I simply didn't try. With a known limited budget, the first two Just Cause games flew under my radar for a long time until I had the chance to play the second game for a short session. Thanks to the greatness of Microsoft's Games for Gold program, I was able to eventually own Just Cause 2. The plan of playing the second iteration before Just Cause 3 was released didn't pan out. Instead of being patient, I just went on and decided to play the latest game first. With experienced players of the series stating that going from 2 to 3 actually makes the latter feel less fun in comparison, helped reinforce my decision. Thankfully, that didn't mean Just Cause 3 didn't completely suffer from the dreaded sequel-itis. Just Cause series cover boy and apparent Superman Rico Rodriguez returns to head the latest game from Avalanche Studios with the intention of liberating his homeland of Medici from a bona fide homicidal dictator, General Di Ravello. By joining a group of rebel forces, Rico goes throughout the multiple provinces making up Medici to free people from being physically and economically abused. How? By blowing up everything possible. I only had a few goals when it came to getting the full experience of Just Cause 3. Finish the story, liberate Medici, and maybe even pick up all of the collectibles while exploring the world. After 15 or so hours, I wrapped up the story and was free to roam. But technical issues impeded my plans and left me unable to actually liberate a particular area. With the fun diminishing not because of the technical issues, but also the repetition that comes with doing the same thing over and over again, convinced me to call it a day on Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 had the initial promise of being better than its predecessor thanks to a bigger budget, half a decade of development, and the power of the 8th generation consoles. Unfortunately, the reality of everything coming together to create the next great, or at least memorable, sandbox-style game falls short of high expectations, while somehow providing something worth playing for a good amount of time. To save Medici and help its people, Rico goes on a crusade of obliteration through both towns and military bases, featuring more explosive objects than one can shake a stick at, or in this case a rocket launcher. The level of creativity that comes with simply tearing the world asunder is absolutely phenomenal, and what a world it is. While liberating towns or destroying Di Ravello's army, it becomes apparent that the land crafted for the game is meant to awe the player with its increase in verticality. The ability to scale upward and into the depths rivals, if not outdoes, several games in the genre. Soaring from the top of a snow-covered mountain and witnessing the white turn green as you near a dense forest is only matched by the sparkling sea that lines the various coasts. It's actually a nice way to tug at the player's heartstrings as one can state, "This is what I'm fighting for." To traverse such a grand land is less of a chore and more of an experience thanks to 3 key items: the wingsuit, a parachute, and the tether, the game's answer to the grappling hook. Gamers can string together all 3 items to fly through the digitized clouds like a murdering eagle. Use the tether to reel Rico in, only to tap the jump button to open the parachute and gain maximum height that allows for another button tap that sees the hero turn into a living bird with his wingsuit. Once the player gets the hang of using these 3 items, it makes jetting around Medici a lot more fun than using a jet itself, especially considering the way vehicles handled don't make using cars, bikes, or even helicopters a fantastic experience. But the tether isn't just a way for Rico to go from one point to another. Actually, the tether proves to be one of Rico's greatest weapons. The tether caused a majority of domino effect moments of chaos during my playtime. The tether allows the player to attach 2 or more things and pull them together, be it soldiers firing at Rico or a propaganda-spewing van ironically being slammed into the gigantic statue of Di Ravello. The tether is essential in completing goals and simply destroying almost anything that isn't an actual building or mountainside. It seems like developers felt that gunplay improvement was unimportant when compared to not only the other tools for the player to accomplish his or her plans, but also the other open-world games in this day and age. During the first mission, it becomes obvious this game plays like the original Saints Row. There is practically no cover system, with the player being forced to make their own cover by hiding behind a brick wall or steel beam if they can find one in time. Rico can crouch. Strafing looks incredibly awkward as Rico's top half stays in line with the direction of the camera while his waist and legs move in full motion. Melee isn't much better as it only allows the protagonist to throw a forearm without any type of accuracy. The AI, both ally and adversary, is lacking. The enemy AI settings are either set on dumb as dirt or a sniper with a shotgun. Fighting enemies with weaponry can be like shooting fish in a barrel as the faceless soldiers just stand around waiting for the inevitable, or go into survival mode with the precision and accuracy of a sharpshooter no matter what weapon the target is holding. Enemies are also bullet sponges who are blessed with incredible life bars thanks to the game's iffy hit detection. Obvious headshots sometimes don't register. Shooting an enemy in the arms or legs doesn't give Rico an advantage as it doesn't affect walking, holding a weapon, or shooting in the least. When it comes to allies, they don't help as much as they hinder success by usually being plain stupid and easy targets who, if their health is depleted during missions where allies are in the trenches with Rodriguez, then his mission failed. This is made even worse later in the game where enemy waves grow more profound without enemies themselves getting any smarter. Just the artificial difficulty thanks to the addition of mounting numbers rather than actual challenging enemies. These enemy waves usually come from the magical ability of teleportation that DiRivello's men apparently have whenever Rico's back is turned. The amount of times during a firefight I've turned around after running from two shooting enemies to recover Rico's regenerating health to discover an entire firing squad not ready to put me down were numerous. Easily one of the weakest parts of the game has to be the story. While many long-time Just Cause players wouldn't consider the plot ever being a reason to enjoy the game, developers promoted it as an improvement compared to its predecessors. Having not played the first two games in full, it's hard to determine whether or not they failed or succeeded in their goals. But when judging the story on its own, it's nothing short of disappointing, mostly thanks to the disassociation between the paint-by-the-numbers plot focusing on an action hero killing a bunch of people for the downtrodden, oppressed people, and the actual people caught in the crossfire. The player can indiscriminately kill any civilian and not get punished, unlike, say, the first two Infamous games. It makes no sense and doesn't reinforce the fact that Rico is a freedom fighter. The forgettable story wouldn't be so terrible if missions connecting each plot point and cutscene weren't so uninspired, and not uninspired from the perspective of comparing to other sandbox games like Grand Theft Auto. With only 25 story missions, Just Cause 3 actually recycles missions without any significant changes. One mission where Rico has to sneak into a secret base via an underwater cavern to blow up 3 generators is actually used 3 times through the story. Even Rico remarks that his current mission is awfully familiar and what is supposed to be a tongue-in-cheek fourth wall breaking moment, but it just reinforces the fact how lazy developers were when crafting the story and the missions that hold it all together. Sometimes the plot hinges on liberating towns, with the missions actually being locked until you free a province that can range from 1 outpost to 5 locations featuring the game's equivalent of fortresses, or stereotypical Mediterranean towns. The liberation of provinces also brings forth challenges. Unlike games like Far Cry, where players are given experience points to buy upgrades for finishing both main and side missions, this game's type of EXP, or gears, are solely attached to particular challenges that can be anything from flying through rings with Rico's wingsuit to collecting balls with a telecar. Unfortunately, the player isn't informed what challenges open up with each liberated area until after completing all the necessities, meaning if you enjoy a particular challenge or want to upgrade one specific thing like the tether, or how many grenades Rico can have at one time, it becomes something of a wild goose chase, helping take away the special feeling of completing something that should be optional and a way to extend gameplay time. And don't even get me started on the annoyances of these intrusive online leaderboards that tells the player every time some random Joe outdoes his or her headshot kill streak when the gamer is most likely asleep or at work. All of this produces a package of repetition and unfulfilled bold proclamations. But a showcase of repetition and lacking narrative doesn't compare to the game's biggest flaw, technical issues. Just Cause 3 can be an absolute nightmare when it comes to glitches, extended loading sequences, even when resetting challenges, frame rate drops, and software crashes that can happen at any time. What read and sounded like an exaggeration by gamers proved to be anything but once I actually started playing the game. Midway through, when the player is afforded more tools to destroy everything around Rico, frame rate slowdown becomes a problem. And sometimes the frame rate dips aren't even associated with the action, as a particular weapon cache slowed down the entire game as the weapon's name struggled to appear on my TV screen. Several glitches caused me to fail missions, like one particular assignment where I had to hang from a helicopter, only for the helicopter to fly away, with Rico just hovering in midair without the ability to move. Unfortunately, this proved not to be an isolated incident when it came to riding or hanging from vehicles during missions, though I never had a problem out of missions. The level of frustration that came from these issues beyond my control is one of the main reasons why Medici never was fully liberated by yours truly. While it might come across like Just Cause 3 is a terrible experience, it really isn't. There's a lot of fun to be had causing explosions galore and using a wingsuit to fly over the relatively beautiful and large map. But beyond all of that, there is no real heart or substance to make the game memorable beyond moments of self-adulation thanks to the insanity one can create without a care in the world. Sadly, thanks to the shallow foundation and feeling of been there, seen that comes with Just Cause 3, after acquiring a majority of the destructive tools provided, the game shows just how mundane blowing up everything can be after doing it over and over again in spectacular fashion. Just Cause 3 is a pure example of diminishing returns, with a terrible story, forgettable missions, and an intentional experience grinding in an open-world sandbox-style game. Just Cause 3's only draw point is blowing stuff up, and when that stops being fun, so does the game. If you enjoy tearing down the 90th billboard or a group of speakers to liberate some random town without worrying about genuine substance, then the fun will never end. For others, Just Cause 3 will be an exciting experience for a while, but you will soon realize there's not much else to draw someone in.